Okay, can everybody hear me now? Man, oh man, love technology when it works. Not so wild about it when it don't. I don't know what was going on with this morning. Having all sorts of little technical difficulties with the YouTube today. But that's what keeps life interesting. Hopefully you can all hear me out there. And we'll try to get this show on the road. Uh, I'll keep an eye here on the chat for a couple minutes while I jaw jack at you and see if everybody can hear me. Yes, we've got audio. Whoopee! Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. Today is the 5th day of August, 2016. Sun keeps peeking out and going back behind the clouds here in Indiana today, and there is a nice breeze going. Supposed to get some rain this afternoon and this evening. Be very welcome. Getting tired of going out and watering the garden. Be nice if Mother Nature takes her turn for a while. Got some tomatoes out of the garden yesterday and pulled out some stuff that was spent already and got it cleared out. So, things are on the upswing. The year is moving on with the garden crop. Oh my, well, let's see. We've got a whole lot of news that we're going to cover today, and I'm just going to get started at it. The first one that I've got is off of the Telegraph, and it says here, Barack Obama orders U.S. bombing of Islamic State in Libya. And I will also add that all these URLs are in the description of the video, so you can check them out for yourself later if you have any questions about them. And this one reads, the U.S. military launched the first of what is expected to be sustained series of airstrikes in Libya, targeting Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant's stronghold of Sirte. Strikes were authorized by President Barack Obama after being requested by the United Nations-backed government in Libya. The last U.S. bombing in Libya was in February, and the intervention marked its first to support Libyan forces in their battle against the ISIL state in Sirte. It was likely to mark the start of more intense U.S. involvement in Libya, opening a new and more persistent front against ISIL. The strikes involved aircraft and unmanned drones and targeted vehicles, including a tank location. ISIL seized Sirte last year, making it their most important base outside Syria and Iraq, but they are now besieged in a few square miles in the center. They hold several strategically important sites, including the university, the main hospital, and the Al-Gado Conference Hall, where they are believed to have stockpiled large amounts of ammunition. A Pentagon spokesman said the ISIL vehicles were targeted with precision strikes, and there would be more to come. He said no ground troops would be deployed. The spokesman said additional U.S. strikes will continue to target ISIL in Sirte to enable the government of national accord to make a decisive strategic advance. Fayez Sarraj, the prime minister, speaking on Libyan television, said the first airstrikes were carried out at specific locations in Sirte today, causing severe losses to enemy ranks. Forces aligned with the government have been battling ISIL in Sirte on the Mediterranean in northern Libya since May. The airstrikes came amid fears about ISIL's increased threat to Europe. Mr. Obama authorized them following recommendations from Ash Carter, the Defense Secretary, and General Joseph Dunford, the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Pentagon spokesman said they are consistent with our approach to combating ISIL by working with capable and motivated local forces. The U.S. stands with the international community in supporting the GNA as it strives to restore stability and security to Libya. Earlier this year, U.S. forces estimated ISIL was up to 6,000 strong in Libya, including some who had moved there from Syria. The numbers were believed to have fallen in recent months as ISIL came under pressure from the government, aligned forces, and militias. Last month, General Dunsford estimated the ISIL force left inside Sirte was only a few hundred. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, said last week that ISIL was facing the distinct possibility of defeat there. In February, U.S. planes attacked an ISIL training camp in rural Libya near the Tunisian border, killing more than 40. So there is the news on Libya. The next one that I have here as soon as it comes up. This is off lifezet.com. And it's taking its dear sweet time about coming up. There we go. It says UN backs secret Obama takeover of police. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice has provided oversight and recommendations for improvement of police services in a number of cities with consent decrees. This is one of the most effective ways to reduce discrimination in law enforcement, and it needs to be beefed up and increased to cover as many of the 18,000 plus local law enforcement jurisdictions. That was the United Nations reporter Mania Kai on July 27th, a representative of the UN Human Rights Council, who on the tail end of touring the U.S. endorsed a little-known and yet highly controversial practice by the Justice Department to effect a federal takeover of local police and corrections departments. The consent decrees are already being implemented in Newark, New Jersey, Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, Ferguson, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, and other municipalities. Here's how it works. The Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice files a lawsuit in federal court against a city, county, or state alleging constitutional and civil rights violations by the police or at the corrections facility. It is done under 42 U.S.C. 141-41, a section of the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, granting the Attorney General the power to prosecute law enforcement misconduct. The municipality then simply agrees to the judicial filing without contest, and the result is a wide-reaching federal court order that imposes erroneous regulations on local police. The federal court orders are designed to undo Rudy Giuliani-style policing tactics and were effective at reducing crime in big cities in the 1990s and the 2000s. In short, the much-feared nationalization of local police departments is already being initiated by the Obama administration's Justice Department, and somehow nobody noticed. Federal requirements include how searches are conducted, what constitutes legitimate use of force, the mandatory use of on-body cameras by police, and so forth. The agreements impose years-long compliance and years-long compliance review regimes, implementation deadlines, and regular reviews by federal bureaucrats. This makes local police directly answerable to the Civil Rights Division at the DOJ. One example includes a 77-page March 30th consent decree between the department and the city of Newark, New Jersey that resulted from a 2011 investigation and 2014 series of findings by the Civil Rights Division, and then finally a federal lawsuit alleging police misconduct in the U.S. District Court in the District of New Jersey. The original complaint alleged that the Newark Police Department has engaged in a pattern of practice of constitutional violations in its stop and arrest practices, responses to individuals' exercise of their rights under the First Amendment, uses of force, and theft by officers. The investigation also revealed that the pattern or practice of constitutional violations stems in part from deficiencies in the Newark Police Department system that are designed to prevent and to detect misconduct, including its system for reviewing force and investigating complaints regarding officer conduct. The city of Newark, via the consent decree, agreed to the allegations and to implement a comprehensive and agency-wide policies and procedures that are consistent and incorporate all substantive requirements of this agreement, including rules on stops, searches, use of force, etc. The city has 2 years to implement, with the full agreement lasting 5 years, meaning even if the political parties change power in the city of Newark, the new mayor and city council would still be required to implement the court order. These consent decrees are in essence regulations, that is, without niceties of the administrative procedures requirement, public comments, or even any congressional oversight. Remarkably, congressional offices contacted by this author were generally unaware of the regulation of local policing by DOJ consent decrees with cities, even though the agreements have been implemented for years. Not a single hearing or word of protest has occurred on this topic. The lack of oversight is pathetic enough, but to make matters even worse, this could actually be the first step in a new, wide-ranging body of federal rules on local police. The Department of Housing and Urban Development regulation, affirmatively furthering fair housing, called the AFFH, actually originated as consent decree in 2009 against Westchester County, New York, requiring affordable housing units to be built in the county. Afterwards, Republican Robert Astornio elected county executives, and yet wins still required to implement the court order. Westchester became the basis for the AFFH, where every city and county in the country that accepts any part of $3 billion of annual community development block grants to 1,200 recipient cities and counties now has to comply with HUD's dictates on zoning along racial and income guidelines. DOJ may very well end up doing the same thing with the local police, that is, if Congress does not wise up to what's really happening and defund implementation of 42 U.S.C. 14141. This is dangerous. What is most chilling is how far along the Obama Justice Department is in the process. The breadth of regulation here shatters any notion of local governance or federalism. The Obama administration has been pursuing the government's takeover of local police right under Congress's nose, and Republicans in Congress were apparently unaware it was happening. No doubt the practice would continue under a Hillary Clinton administration too. Do you want a Clinton Justice Department running your local police force? That's how important the election in November suddenly becomes, with law and order already hanging in the balance and the police being targeted by domestic terrorists in the slayings in Dallas and Baton Rouge. As Americans for Limited Government, President Rick Manning noted in a statement calling attention to UN's interest in the DOJ program and urging Congress to act, the fact that the UN Human Rights Council, which includes some of the worst abusers of human rights in the world that hate the U.S., is cheering for this DOJ national takeover of the police should tell members everything they need to know. It's time to support local police, not render them impotent by federal restrictions against maintaining law and order. No less than the very existence of the local government is at stake. So this is one reason that the election is important in November. And another very important reason, lest you forget, is that there's going to be some Supreme Court justices picked by whoever the new president will be, which is going to set the tone for many, many years to come. The next article that I have, this one, as soon as it comes up, is off of Breitbart.com. Chinese state media frets. Religion has come back in a big way. And if we can get her to scroll down here a little bit so I can get started on it. Let's see. It says the Global Times quotes. Oh, now it's bouncing. Get it to cooperate with me instead of bouncing all over the place. All right. The Global Times quotes political experts warning that religious extremism, defined as any religious observance from Islam to Christianity to the Falun Gong group, has become a dire threat to Chinese communism, and regulation of the internet is key to stopping it. And it looks like I've got an ad that's going to try to play here, and it doesn't really show me any way to shut that thing down. We'll see what happens. Okay, it says the column highlights statements from Chinese Singaporean expert. Now, maybe I can shut that silly thing off. Let's see. The column highlights statements from Chinese and Singaporean experts speaking at a conference in Shanghai on extremism called Religious Extremism and Heresy in Pluralistic Society. While most prominent concerns among experts was the spread of radical Islam, particularly among China's Uyghur ethnic minority. All religions were treated as a threat to communist society, and Chinese government has intensified its aggression towards a variety of religious leaders. Religious extremism is spreading in China faster than before, and its impact is greater than ever, affecting Chinese cities and even students on campus, the article cited the experts as noting. And trying to get it to scroll up here. It's taking its dear sweet time today. Okay, it says, and now it goes too far. Okay, some such as Yan Keizhai, president of Shanghai Association of Religious Studies, cited the Falun Gong movement as a particular religious threat to China as they take away their followers' money, brainwash their followers, and commit other anti-rational, anti-social deeds. The Falun Gong is a spiritual movement that teaches its followers to meditate and disconnect from the political world regularly, as well as opposing many medical procedures. Studies suggest the Chinese government has been using Falun Gong prisoners as forced organ donors by the thousands for years. Guy, I guess it's Zhong, Chuang, vice president of Shanghai Association of Religious Studies, forced on Islam, warning that women in the Western Uyghur region are particularly susceptible to radicalization. Through the Global Times does not specify why. Let me get a drink here. Mercy, these Chinese things are eating on me. Okay, it says, Guy recommends strict supervision of internet use as a solution to Islamic radicalism. A Singaporean guest identified as Dr. Rosen Giri noted that while Singaporean government has taken full control of Islamic education, the internet is a big challenge as young people are exposed to social media. We can regulate it, but not totally, he laments. A Singaporean ambassador, Mohammed Almi Musa, pointed that religion itself, not just Islam, is the problem. Religion has come back. It's come back in a big way. The conference occurred shortly after the Chinese government announced new anti-terrorism legislation in Xinjiang, the Western Uyghur region. Under the new regulation, which took effect on Monday, people who expand the concept of halal in Islam, which means adherence to dietary laws, to include other areas of life, but will face detention and fines, Chinese daily reports. The law essentially bars Muslims from following Sharia law outside of their diet. Muslim Sharia law encompasses all aspects of life, from family and finance to diet, hygiene, and government. The new law also imposes harsher punishments on those using cell phones, internet, video or audio files, or publications to spread terrorism and extremism as defined by the Chinese Communist government. The Chinese government has reason to fear radical Islam. The Islamic State has actively attempted to court Chinese nationals, releasing propaganda in Mandarin, a language Uyghurs typically do not speak, and taunting Chinese atheists with a Muslim invasion. They have succeeded in recruiting at least 144 Uyghur Chinese, although the Chinese government claims the number traveling to Syria and Iraq to join ISIS is closer to 300. In response, Xinjiang has passed numerous regional and anti-Islamic laws, including banning Chinese Communist Party members from engaging in the Ramadan fast, to banning to burqas in public and any Islamic garb on public transportation. China's religious restrictions have not ended there. It has expanded to Islamic State threat by attempting to equate other religious leaders to the terrorist group. Notably, the Chinese officials have accused the Dalai Lama of being an Islamic State agent, thus granting them moral license to persecute his Buddhist followers. While unable to tie them to radical Islam, the Chinese government has also intensified its crackdown on Christians. On Wednesday, Chinese state-run outlet Xinhua reported that a Chinese church leader, Hu Shenzhen, would be serving 7 years in prison for counter-revolutionary activities. Hu had spent 14 years in prison for the same crime, ministering to Chinese Christians in a forced confession. Hu said he had long been influenced by bourgeois liberalism and fallen deeper and deeper into the criminal mire of anti-party and anti-government groups. In February, China arrested Gu Yis, the leader of the nation's first megachurch, has also targeted individual churches, forcing public Christian locations to take down their crosses and beating Christians who publicly displayed their faith. So there you have the Chinese religious news. Now this one I found interesting. This is off of BizPac Review, and it says, exclusive, Bill Clinton got millions from world's biggest Sharia law education firm. Former President Bill Clinton collected $5.6 million in fees from GEMS Education, a Dubai-based company that teaches Sharia law through its network of more than 100 schools in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, according to the Daily Caller News Foundation investigation. The company finances strictly adhere to Sharia finance, which include giving zakat, a religious tax, of which 1/8 of the proceeds is dedicated to funding Islamic Jihad. The company also contributed millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. The former president served as honorary chairman for GEMS Education from 2011 to 2014, according to federal tax returns he filed with his wife, 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. His biggest paycheck from the closely held company, which is incorporated in the Cayman Islands, was in 2014 when he pocketed $2.1 million. It is unclear if Bill received income from the Middle Eastern firm in 2015, since Hillary has not yet released her tax return for that year. Sharia law is the Islamic religious legal system that many in the West see as intolerant of human rights and other religions, as well as violating the rights of women and gays. Sharia law is considered by Muslims to be superior to all secular authorities. Islamic jihads regularly call for the imposition of Sharia law and want to impose it on the West. GEMS boasted in 2013 bond prospectus that it is the only foreign group approved for educational services in Saudi Arabia. The GEMS facilities in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, taught 1,600 students in 2013. Saudi Arabia is where Wahhabism, the strictest form of Sharia, is observed. The Middle Eastern kingdom bars women from driving cars, requires women to wear the strictest form of the jihad, which covers everything but the eyes and hands. Gay men and women are persecuted in Saudi Arabia. GEMS distributed a job notice in 2014 for Director of Islamic and Cultural Studies for its campuses in the Saudi Kingdom. The skills for the position included proficiency in Sharia to help develop the curriculum. The company also acts as educational consultant in Egypt, Jordan, and Libya. Clinton's relationship with this Sharia-oriented education firm drew critical reviews from anti-terrorism experts. Why would Bill Clinton be participating in programs that teach Sharia in foreign countries where that is the specific objective of the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda, asked counter-terrorist analyst Stephanie Coughlin in an interview with the DCNF. GEMS is one of the most dominant educational programs in the Middle East, with 51 separate schools operating in the region. Globally, the for-profit company claims that 250,000 students are learning under its program in 170 countries. Outside the Middle East and North Africa, GEMS operates schools in Kenya, Uganda, Southeast Asia, and the United Kingdom. GEMS even has 2 international schools in Chicago. At the GEMS Jamria Primary School in Abu Dhabi, the website promotes Islam as a central tenet of its curriculum. Our aim is to teach all Muslim students the pillars of Islam, Islamic faith, and morals, enabling them to efficiently apply them to their lives. To increase the knowledge of Islam, we share with the children the stories of prophets, manners of living in a Muslim's life, and the 5 pillars of Islam. The Dubai firm has donated between $1 million and $5 million to the Clinton Foundation, according to the foundation website. GEMS was an official sponsor of the 2013 and 2014 Clinton Global Initiative. Its Indian-born CEO, Sunny Barkey, attended both years, and the Barkey Foundation, named after the CEO, contributed $250,000 to $500,000 to the foundation. And Barkey publicly claimed Bill was the honorary chairman of his foundation, but Bill and Hillary report in their joint federal tax return the annual payments came from the for-profit GEMS Education Company. The company has raised funds through bonds and has openly broadcast its commitment to Sharia finance. In 2013, the company issued a $200 million bond prospectus and assured potential investors it relied on fatwa and Sharia advisors to assure it was compliant with Sharia finance. Coughlin and Sharia law on finance also includes money for zakat, a religious tax, and if you read the law of zakat, 1/8 of that money goes to fund jihad, he says. There are 8 categories of zakat you must pay every year, and one of them is jihad. 2 of the banks, Emirates NB and Noor Bank, provided critical loans to GEMS in August of 2015 and were also accused of conducting illicit banking deals with Iran. In a June 9, 2009 diplomatic cable made public by WikiLeaks, U.S. Ambassador to the Arab Emirates Richard G. Olson slammed one of the lenders, Emirates NB Bank. Olson told the Department of State that under Secretary of Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence Stuart LeVay pointed out that Dubai-based Emirates NBD appeared to remain out of step with other major international financial with respect to its sizable Iranian exposure. Olson reported the Emirates NBD chairman Ahmed Al-Tayer erratically dismissed under Secretary LeVay's concern about doing business for Iran with mix of hostility, remorse, and assurances of submission. And this goes on for a little ways, so if you want to read the rest of that, it's there. Bottom line is Bill got millions from the world's biggest Sharia law education firm. Wow. And the next one that I have here is on old Khan. Remember, we've been talking about him for several days now, the feller that jumped up and made the big speech slapping around Donald Trump. That's the lawyer that helps people get in the country from over there in the Middle East. This is off of Before It's News. And the title of the article is called Busted. Khan paid $375,000 from the Clinton Foundation. Corruption reigns. And this one reads, Khazar Khan, the Muslim Gold Star father that mainstream media and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have been using to criticize Donald J. Trump, my goodness. I went to public school. To criticize Donald J. Trump has deep ties to the government of Saudi Arabia and to international Islamist investors through his own law firm. In addition to those ties to the wealthy Islamist nation, Khan also has ties to controversial immigration program that wealthy foreigners can use to essentially buy their way into the United States and has deep ties to the Clinton cash narrative through the Clinton Foundation. Khan and his wife, Josiah Khan, both appeared on stage at the Democratic National Convention to attack on Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's behalf Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for president. Their son, U.S. Army Captain Human Khan, was killed in the Iraq 2004. Kaiser Khan, in his speech to the DNC, lambasted Donald Trump for wanting to temporarily halt Islamic migration to America from countries with proven history of exporting terrorists. Since then, Clinton's operative George Stephanopoulos, who served as senior advisor to the president in Bill Clinton's White House and is the Clinton Foundation donor as well as host on the ABC network, pushed Trump on the matter in an interview. Trump's comments in that interview have sparked the same mini rebellion inside his party, in the media, and across the aisle that has happened many times before. The usual suspect inside the GOP, from former Florida Governor Jeb Bush to Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, to House Speaker Paul Ryan, to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, to Ohio Governor John Kasich, have condemned Trump in one way or another. The media condemnation has been swift, and Democrats, as well as their friends throughout the media, are driving the train as fast as they can. But until now, it looked like the Khans were just Gold Star parents who the big bad Donald Trump attacked. It turns out, however, in addition to being Gold Star parents, the Khans are financially and legally tied deeply to the industry of Muslim migration and to the government of Saudi Arabia and to the Clintons themselves. Khan, according to the Intellis, has also reported by Waleed Shoubate, used to work at the law firm Hogan Lovells LLP, a major DC law firm that has been on retainer as the law firm represents the government of Saudi Arabia in their United States for years. Citing federal government disclosure forms, the Washington Free Beacon, reported the connection between Saudi Arabia and Hogan Lovells a couple weeks ago. Hogan Lovells LLP, another U.S. firm hired by the Saudis, is registered to work for the Royal Embassy of Saudi Arabia through 2016 disclosures show. Joe Schaufstall, the Federal Beacon, reported. So there you have that one. Busted. See whose payroll they're on. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go into health. I got two very interesting articles on Zika, and the first one is off of the Telegraph, and it's Science, and it says Zika vaccine gives complete protection and is ready for human trials, say scientists. So bear with me through this one, and then we'll get to the next one. It says 3 Zika vaccines have been found to give complete protection against the virus in monkeys, and scientists say they are ready to be trialed on humans. The breakthrough offers hope that within months, an effective jab will be available to prevent the devastating infection, which has been linked to more than 1,700 cases of microcephaly, a birth defect which leaves babies with shrunken heads. Today, a collaboration of scientists, include researchers from Harvard University and the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, confirms that tests of 3 vaccines had given complete immunity to rhesus monkeys. The British virologist said that the announcement was as good a result as you could have wished for and an important step in combating the disease. Senior author Dr. Dan Morrow, professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, said 3 vaccines provided complete protection against Zika virus in non-human primates, which is the best animal model prior to starting clinical trials. The consistent and robust protection against Zika virus in both rodents and primates fuels our optimism about the development of safe and effective Zika vaccines for humans. Laboratories across the world have been rushing to develop a vaccine since the Zika outbreak began last year. The pressure has mounted after it was confirmed this week that 15 people in Florida had caught the virus from local populations of mosquitoes. In an unprecedented move, the Center for Disease Control warned pregnant women to keep away from the area of North Miami. 2 of the 3 vaccines were developed by BIDMC. A third was created by Army researchers from Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. One virus consisted of an inactivated form of Zika virus, and the other 2 used a fragment of viral DNA to trigger an immune response. A total of 20 monkeys were used to test the 3 vaccines, and after 2 weeks, all showed complete protection and were not infected when exposed to strains from Brazil and Puerto Rico. There were no side effects to the vaccine. Results from both mouse and non-human primate testing are encouraging and support decision to advance our vaccine candidate to human trials, said Colonel Stephen Thomas, an infectious disease Army physician and vaccinologist at WRAIR. It builds on technology WRAIR developed and successfully applied to other flavirus vaccines. We hope by leveraging proven technology, we increase our chances of developing safe and effective Zika vaccine. Scientists at the WRAIR had a head start on other labs as they have been researching flavivirus, a family of viruses that include yellow fever, Japanese encephalitis, dengue, West Nile, and Zika virus for over a century. Our laboratory in Thailand has been conducting surveillance for Zika for many years, added Colonel Thomas. Professor Ian Jones, professor of virology, University of Reading, said the demonstration of protection against Zika infection in rhesus monkeys is not expected, but is nonetheless welcome as further step on the road to a human vaccine. However, as a waymarker to proven human vaccine, this is about as good as a result as you could wish for, Dr. Peter Barlow, British Society for Immunology spokesperson at Reader in Immunology and Infection at Edinburgh Napier University, added. This study represents a promising step forward in the rapid development of a safe and robust vaccine against Zika virus infection in humans. I would now expect clinical trials of Zika vaccine in humans using one or more of these approaches to begin this year. Researchers expect phase 1 clinical testing of ZPIV vaccine to begin later this year. The research was published in the Journal of Science. Now, that sounds interesting, right? You know, they come up with something to combat it with, and it's a vaccine that you can go and get a shot. So you're going to love this next article. This one is off of Natural News. Zika doomsday hoax unravels. Predicted explosion of brain defects didn't happen. Entire scare campaign was manufactured. From the very first day Zika hysteria was catapulted into mass awareness, I have correctly called it a massive hoax. My most recent article spells out the real agenda behind the obvious quackery of Zika hysteria. It's entitled Staged Zika Pandemic Was Engineered by Globalist Governments to Justify the Aerial Bombardment of Awakening Populations with Toxic Chemicals. Now the Zika fraud has started to unravel as Zika doomsday predictions failed to materialize. How could the predictions be correct in the first place? It was all based on infectious disease quackery and viral voodoo. Brazil's Ministry of Health has launched an investigation into a cluster of babies born with brain defects linked to Zika virus after an expected explosion of cases across the country did not occur, reports the Globe and Mail in Canada. Turns out that even though Zika carrying mosquitoes spread across Brazil and infected untold millions of people, those infections never translated into neurodevelopmental birth defects or shrunken brains. The Zika virus alone, in other words, isn't causing a wave of microcephaly, which is exactly what I've been accurately telling everyone since day one. The sky is falling. Shocking lack of brain deformities baffle all the experts who still won't admit they were wrong. The bulk of the cases of congenital Zika syndromes, fetal brain defects that sometimes cause microcephaly or abnormally small skulls, remains clustered in the northeast region of the country, reports the astonished Globe and Mail. This defies all the official predictions, of course, which warned the world of a doomsday Zika scenario where humans in all the tropical regions of the world would be reduced to babbling, stunted, deformed creatures unless we all agreed to be bombarded by aerial pesticide chemicals. This is from the Globe and Mail, this excerpt, and it says, we can see there's kind of cluster in part of the northeast region with high prevalence and high severity of miscarriage and congenital malformation that is really severe, said Fatima Maranho, coordinator of epidemiology analysis and information at the ministry. But we didn't find this in other states. Even in the adjacent states, didn't seem to have the situation as in the epicenter. We were preparing for an explosion and it didn't come. So we started to think that in this central area, maybe more than Zika is causing the intensity and severity. Note that even now the scientists still can't admit they were wrong. They can't say that Zika has nothing to do with the microcephaly case, and they most assuredly can't admit that it was a larvicide chemical dumped into the water supply that caused the neurodevelopmental deformities from the very beginning. Yet, once again, Zika hysteria dominated the scientifically illiterate media in much of the same way that the climate change hoax also grabs headlines. In both cases, you have the combination of false fear and bad science amplified by scientifically illiterate but politically compliant mainstream media and believed by a gullible population of cowardly consumers who fall for every quack science hoax perpetuated on them by the dishonest government. According to quack scientists, mosquitoes conduct racial profiling, divide black people of low economic status. To demonstrate how ridiculous the status quo theory is on Zika, consider the fact that the documented microcephaly case in Brazil appeared predominantly in black Brazilians of low economic status. Now, if you believe the Zika doomsday scientists, that can only happen if mosquitoes are racially profiling people and selectively targeting black people after checking their bank accounts to make sure they're also poor. Such a belief is, of course, utterly ridiculous. Mosquitoes don't care what color you are. All they know is that you're a warm-blooded being with a source of nutrients they need. So what's the real explanation for the cluster of microcephaly cases among the lower income regions of Brazil where predominantly black-skinned people live? Because that's where they dump the propanophen, or however it's pronounced, chemical into the water. The obvious answer is already identified: toxic chemicals that cause brain deformities. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Pyroproxyfen, I guess that's how it is the larvicide chemical used by the Brazilian government to try to quell mosquito populations in the poorer, more rural regions of Brazil. The chemical, as I have exhaustively documented here in Natural News, works by destroying the neurological development of insects. A group of scientists in Brazil already sounded the alarm about this chemical, saying it was the actual cause of microcephaly. And the article goes on, if you'd like to read the rest of it, but I think that pretty much is the gist. Zika doomsday hoax unravels. So there you have it. It's that little bright shiny thing, you know, the glitter they throw in the air to distract us from what they're really doing. Okay, the next one that I have, this is off Breitbart.com. And it says Silicon Valley startup culture explains why mass Muslim migration must stop. And we'll get it to scroll up here. It's taking its time. Let's see. Come on, Slowpoke. It says, ask a startup CEO what the most important thing is at his company, and you're likely to hear something about company culture. And I'm waiting. Here we go. A unique blend of values and workplace norms that give startups their unique vibe. It's something that tech companies are very proud of in the Silicon Valley. Not for them, the neckties, cubicles, and white desks found in less imaginative industries. These guys have plaid shirts, beanbags, and ping pong tables for employees, and relaxed, millennial-friendly attitudes for working hours. Valley Startups understands the importance of culture in organization success. Indeed, tech companies take company culture so far that they turn into borderline cults. And get it to scroll up. There we go. And it's got some ad trying to play. Holy smoke. Okay, some would argue that, well, now I'm not going to listen to that. Stop that. It's disagreeing with me. Here we go. Now, try that. Okay, some would argue, well, screen stopped slipping around on me. Some would argue that company's culture is even more important than the skills and experiences of the senior hires. Indeed, it's now accepted practice for potential employees to be rejected because hiring managers don't think they'd be a good fit in the company's atmosphere. Which, of course, makes sense. Different companies work differently, and no one in culture is a perfect fit for every startup. Google can't work like Zappos does. Amazon can't work like Twitter. Facebook can't work like Apple. Every startup CEO knows this and takes pride in his company's distinctiveness. Many believe that it's precisely their company's culture that affords them a competitive edge. CEO often hire a small percentage of bad fits on purpose in order to avoid groupthink and long-established teams, say 2.5 to 5%, but any more than that starts tearing the company apart, causing it to lose its edge and flavor. To put it another way, Silicon Valley companies are stopping people at the door because their values and behaviors don't mesh with the culture inside and might have negative outcomes for the people working there already. You see where I'm going with all this. San Francisco, perhaps the place on earth most sensitive to the potential and fragility of subcultures, unique working environments, and carefully nurtured social attitudes, is perhaps the locus of opposition to Donald Trump and the most powerful center of resistance to strong borders. It's illogical and hypocritical. Silicon Valley refuses to acknowledge that the same processes at play in their companies, which often compromise thousands of employees, are also at play in nations, societies, and local communities. The history, values, and norms of people given a culture its unique qualities. Flood villages, cities, and countries with outsiders who don't share them, and that culture disappears, and whatever it was that made that culture unique dies too. And let's be clear, some of the people coming into Europe and America really don't share our values. Western culture, for example, does not endorse the oppression of women, the murder of apostates, or the execution of homosexuals. It does not endorse the death penalty for blasphemers or violence and discrimination against non-believers. Muslim cultures do, yet according to Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, who presides over one of the most culture-obsessed companies in Silicon Valley, we should follow the lead of Germany and open our borders to millions of intolerant, sexist homophobes from non-Western countries. Just like bad fit employees who cause divisions in a company, our countries, like the figurative startup, will turn into hostile, intolerant war zones if we import and alien culture in large enough numbers. Germany and Sweden have already accepted this fate. I wonder if the UK will act fast enough to prevent it. We have millions of Muslims here in England who haven't just failed to assimilate, but are actually moving backwards. More fighters travel to Syria to join ISIS from Britain than any other country, save Belgium. Another jihad paradise in the Western Europe brought about by uncontrolled immigration. A friend of mine who runs a venture-funded startup of about 100 people say that the hires who stick around the longest and integrate most successfully into the business tend to be the ones who join during periods of modest recruitment. For Silicon Valley companies, growth phases of high-volume hiring can be perilous. Recruiters ideally want to thoroughly vet each employee to ensure they can fit in with the culture. They can't just open the floodgates and hope for the best. And that article goes on quite a ways. So if you would like to read the rest of that, it is in the description. But that gives you the basic gist that their beliefs do not allow them to fit in with the culture in getting jobs and running companies successfully here in the United States. BizPack Review, Berkeley admin builds escape hatch to flee from unhinged college snowflakes they helped create. Students at the University of California, Berkeley are upset that Chancellor Nicholas Dirks has installed a series of measures so he can avoid having to deal with the constant sit-ins and protests special snowflake students keep launching. The Chancellor has even added a new back door to his office that some are dubbing an escape hatch. The door was installed at a cost of $9,000, according to collegefix.com, but it was only part of the student avoidance system put in place at UC Berkeley. According with the new escape hatch, the school also erected new fencing around the Chancellor's campus residence to keep people away. The barriers and back doors show that administrations on the campus operate in near constant state of fear of its students, the Daily Californian, an independent student-run newspaper, noted in an editorial. Protests on this campus are commonplace, and they frequently occur around the Chancellor's office and residence. We acknowledge the Chancellor's right to safety and security, but we fear that many of these safety measures are coming at the expense of accessibility to students and faculty, the editorial stated. Still, according to College Fix, a spokesman for the Chancellor insisted he didn't ask for the escape hatch to be installed. He was not actually aware that it was being built, said Dan Mogloff, UC Berkeley's Executive Director for Communications and Public Affairs. This came about in response to staff concerns after a number of occupations that of that particular floor of the administration building and our policies and our police department thought it would be beneficial just to have one extra door, which is all that it is. It will provide staff, if need be, in the future, another way of getting out of the building. Mogloff said, Mogloff also claimed police had raised the installation as a safety issue. There was really only one way out. The police thought that it would be a good idea, and it was really in response to staff concerns, Mogloff said. A member of the Associated Students of the University of California, though, says there must be a better way to deal with constant student protests other than just avoiding them. In any case, it appears the special snowflakes at Berkeley are upset their near daily wine fests are being avoided. So the snowflakes are on a meltdown. All right, the next one that we have is off the Washington Post. And if this would work a little quicker, it would be better. Okay, you might want to be aware of this one. Wearing "Don't Tread on Me" insignia could be punishable racial harassment. You know, the one with the coiled snake, and it says underneath it, "Don't tread on me," that you see on flags and stuff. Well, this says the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, among its other functions, decides hostile work environment harassment claims brought against federal agencies. In doing so, it applies the same legal rules that courts apply to private employers and that the EEOC follows in deciding whether to sue private employers. The EEOC has already ruled that co-workers wearing Confederate flag t-shirts can be punishable harassment, a decision that I think is incorrect. And surprisingly, this is extended to other political speech as well. Here's an excerpt from Sheldon D. Versus Brennan, 2016. Decided by the EEOC's 2 months ago. And this says, on January the 8th of 2014, complainant filed a formal complaint in which he alleged that the agency subjected him to discrimination on the basis of race. He was African American. And in reprisal for prior EEO activity when starting in the fall of 2013, a co-worker repeatedly wore a cap to work with an insignia of the Gadsden flag, which depicts the coiled rattlesnake and the phrase, "Don't tread on me." Complainant stated that he found the cap to be racially offensive to African Americans because the flag was designed by Christopher Gadsden, a slave trader and owner of slaves. Complainants also alleged that he complained about the cap to management. However, although management assured him that the complainant would be told not to wear the cap, the complainant continued to come to work wearing the offensive cap. Additionally, complainant alleged that on September 2nd of 2013, a co-worker took a picture of him on the workroom floor without his consent. In a decision dated January 29, 2014, the agency dismissed complainant's complaint on the basis that it failed to state a claim. Complainant maintains that Gadsden flag is a historical indicator of white resentment against blacks stemming largely from the Tea Party. He notes that the vice president of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters cited the Gadsden flag as the equivalent of the Confederate battle flag when he successfully had it removed from New Haven, Connecticut Fire Department flagpole. After a thorough review of the record, it is clear that the Gadsden flag originated in the Revolutionary War in a non-racial context. Moreover, it is clear that the flag and its slogan have been used to express various non-racial sentiments, such as when it's used in the modern Tea Party political movement, guns rights activism, patriotic displays, and by the military. However, whatever the historic origins and meaning of the symbol, it also has since been sometimes interpreted to convey racially tinged messages in some contexts. For example, in June of 2014, assailants with connections to white supremacist groups draped the bodies of 2 murdered police officers with the Gadsden flag during their Las Vegas, Nevada shooting spree. And let's see, goes on here a ways. It says, in light of the ambiguity in the current meaning of the symbol, we find that the complainant claim must be investigated to determine the specific context in which it was displayed, the symbol in the workplace. So in finding, we're not prejudging the merits of the complainant's complaint. Instead, we're precluding a procedural dismissal that would deprive us of evidence that would eliminate the meaning conveyed by the display of the symbol. So this goes on. If you'd like to read the rest of that, it's pretty interesting. Just giving you a heads up, you know, that first it was the Confederate flag. Now it's the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. How much you want to bet the next one's going to be the American flag? So there you have that one. The next one that I have is off of the dailygalaxy.com. For those of you who are into space and science and all that sort of thing, you might really be interested in this. In lieu of time, I'm not going to read the article, but it says NASA observatory reveals a dark zone. Swarm of 10,000 black holes have migrated to the heart of the Milky Way. And it's a short article, but it is very enlightening, talking about the black holes and stuff. So, you know, if you're interested in that sort of thing, I'd suggest that you pull that up and take a look at it. And it's got some interesting comments at the bottom of it as well. So we have that one. And the very last one that I'm going to read for you. This is a short one, and it's heartwarming. Yeah, I like to bring some good news for the end of the show because, you know, we have so much of this negative stuff and stuff to be concerned about that we talk about for an hour. We can at least talk about one nice thing, can't we? This is off the Good News Network. It says a little girl who wants to be cop is cheered by ladies with badges worldwide. And it says when the 4-year-old girl decided she wanted to be a police officer for Halloween, her mother ran into a shopping roadblock. All of the cop costumes were designed for little boys. This brought to light an offense that officers from around the country are quick to address. After Chelsea Gortler put out an all-points bulletin about her daughter Kinley's frustration, female police officers from every U.S. state responded with call of girl cops are awesome and girl cops rule. Fifth grader pledged to protect special needs boy on the playground. Kinley Gortler has also received support from cops in 5 other countries and is amassing an impressive collection of police patches, which officers are still sending her. It just feels amazing, Kinley's mom, Chelsea Gortler, told KGW News. I can't even describe how wonderful it is for these people to love Kinley and just support what she's doing. It says police officers in Vancouver, Washington, even rolled out a police cruiser and other equipment and allowed Kinley and other girls some up-close time with the tools of law enforcement. And there's some pictures in this if you want to see a picture of the little girl. She's a sweet-looking little girl. You know, and just a reminder that, you know, whatever it is that somebody has as a dream, and it doesn't have to be a child, it can be an adult, you know, whatever their dream is, don't knock them down for it. You know, it's their dream. If you have a way to help them achieve it, help them. And if you don't, and you don't have anything nice to say, shut up. Because it's not your dream, it's theirs. You're not walking their path, you know. It's amazing how fast people are to be negative when they hear something, you know. Somebody says, I'd like to do so-and-so. And oh, you can't do that. Oh, stop it. They can if they want to, if they're determined enough, if they have enough enthusiasm, if they learn a little bit of skill, they can do whatever they want. And so can you. You woke up above ground this morning, didn't you? Be happy about it. And this afternoon, go out, kick off your shoes, put your feet down in the grass, take a deep breath of fresh air, and be so happy that you're living this life. If you see somebody that needs help, help them. And with that, I believe that we're going to call this a day. And we'll see you back here. Let's see, this is Friday, isn't it? Well, we'll see you back here on Monday at noon unless something breaks in the meantime and I have to do a special report on it. But we'll see you back here. And if you get bored over the weekend, need something to do, you can pull up my other channel and listen to some of the stories that I've told on there. At least it'll give you a chuckle. So with that, we're going to shut her down, and we'll see y'all next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.